November of, what was it, 2023.
Yep.
Guy named Bubba Copeland.
Yeah. Great guy.
Down in Lee County, yeah. Was living dual lives, portraying himself one way during the day, living a very awkward, prurient lifestyle after hours. And the story dropped in your lap, and y'all decided to run with the story. And you made national news for all the reasons you'd rather not, because he wound up taking his own life.
Sure.
You and I were talking last night at dinner. That was not just a news story. That was a cultural episode for you guys at 1819. Tell me a little bit about that, the decision-making to actually run with the story and the aftermath, and any thoughts on it since.
Sure. That situation was you have situations like prison was for me. It was make or break. You have in an organization, you have these moments which are existential crises that you go through where this is either going to make us or it's going to break us. But if it makes us, we're going to be galvanized and unified and battle tested. But if we're not, it's going to break us. And that was a make or break. And so there's a story behind it. I had a World War II pilot. This is the short version of the story, who flew P-51 Mustangs. And about 3 or 4 years before I started 1819 News, God gave me this story. I won't go through the whole story. But essentially, I'm in his house. He lives with his son, and his son is a pastor friend of mine. And I was looking at this P-51 Mustang replica. Well, Bill Brown, he was shot down in the Battle of Iwo Jima. His plane was ripped to shreds by anti-aircraft artillery. He crashed in the Pacific Ocean. And he was rescued by an American submarine in enemy waters, right? Unbelievable. So I'm wanting to talk to him. Well, I never really got the opportunity to talk to him, but we're about to leave, and I'm looking at this P-51 Mustang replica, okay? And he's 92 years old, and he's in a motorized wheelchair. I'm looking, just fascinated by this propeller plane that he flew in one of the greatest battles in our nation's history, and what it would be like to be in a propeller plane having it ripped to shreds by anti-aircraft artillery, Yeah. And he rolls up beside me, and it kind of startled me. And I looked down. I said, he says, "Bryan." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Bryan, there was a time when we did what was right, even if they shot bullets at us." He said, "Bryan, there's coming a time in your life when you're going to have to do what's right, even if they shoot bullets at you." And he rolled off. That is our motto at 1819 News. We're going to do what's right, even if they shoot bullets at us. And it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it, okay? And that moment, we had to make that decision. And so we find out that this guy who is a mayor of Smith Station, he is the pastor of First Baptist Church.
This is the Bubba Copeland we're talking about.
Yeah, Bubba Copeland.
Yeah.
First Baptist Church, Phoenix City.
Yep.
And he's living in a double life as an online trans porn star, okay? I am a worldview guy, and call it what you will, whatever. Not only was he an online trans porn star, he was writing homoerotic slasher fiction. I didn't know that was a genre until this, okay? And what that means is he's writing stuff where it's obviously depicting homosexual sexual fantasies that is just sick. And then he's also talking about killing people in these writings. I didn't make it that far into reading it, okay? Craig did. And shout out to Craig. Craig is
Craig
Monger is the guy is unbelievable. I mean, this story embodies how unbelievable it is. But all of our huge, bombastic, heavy hitting stories, 80% of the time it's going to have Craig's name on it, right? And this one was no different. And he had to read all this stuff. I read one paragraph and I knew that he was having sex with all the kids in his church just by reading that first paragraph. Okay. It was sick. He was, I don't know. I don't want to go too far into it, but he was literally just describing what it was like to have gay sex in this first paragraph and how wonderful it was and everything else, and crazy detail. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And by day, he's a pastor at First Baptist Church.
Correct. And then also the mayor of Smith Station.
And mayor of Smith Station.
And it is just like, whoa. And then we found he has these memes on a social media account. And the meme is a picture of a boy, and then it looks like the boy transitioned into a girl. And so it's a meme that's encouraging children to transition their gender. And it says, get the shot, take the jab, become the whore, on this meme that he's encouraging children to transition their gender. Well, we published that. Well, the parents reach out and was like, "Hey,
I
could you
remember.
could you take
all
my
this.
kids down? Like, those are your kids? Those are real, like, those are real people." He's like, "Yeah, no, we're in the community. That's my 14-year-old son and my 17-year-old daughter. Could you please take them down?"
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, so he's taking pictures of kids in the community, making memes about transitioning, making it look like this boy transitioned into this girl when it was a brother and a sister. I mean, I could go on for
He was
hours.
using
about
real
sick.
people in his
real people
community.
in his community.
Now, I know he was doing that in his writings too, wasn't he?
Yes, in his
Stealing
writings.
people's identities too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have all that. That was what convinced us to write the first story. Was some of the writings we didn't know about, the writing to talk about killing and all that stuff. We just saw the heinous perversion in the writing. We saw the meme encouraging children to transition their gender. He's a pastor. So these were kind of the facts. And Jeff and I sat up, I think that was a Tuesday night, until like midnight playing devil's advocate. Well, if we publish, this is what'll happen. What about this? Like, just basically, we understand the power of what we do, and we don't take it lightly.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say is in talking to Jeff later. I don't know if I don't think you and I have ever talked about this in detail, but Jeff and I have talked about it some, and he stressed how this was not a flippant decision. This was not just another story. This was actually, y'all had some editorial meetings about this to decide
Big
whether we're
time.
really going to hit publish.
Yeah, and what it all boiled down to, out of all the questions and conversations and devil's advocate and potential scenarios, Jeff's like, "Bryan, if that was your church and your kids went there, would you want to know?"
Yeah.
We said, "We're publishing." That's what we did, and so we published it on Wednesday morning. Wednesday night, he gets in the pulpit of First Baptist Church, Phoenix City, and he defends himself and downplays it, and like it's no big deal. Jeff didn't take very kindly to that, nor did I, nor did Craig, and so we dripped out 3 more stories, each getting worse and worse. Maybe it was 4 more stories. And
I remember you had to put some graphics in there too to make sure that people knew this was real.
Yeah. And they were like, "You're sensationalizing the story." I said, "No, the story's sensational. Like that, don't get it confused. Like, we're not sensationalizing, we're reporting on a sensational story. Like, this is insane."
Yeah.
And so we published some more stories. Well, the 4th story was the homoerotic slasher fiction, and where we got that terminology from. There's a woman in the community, and he used in this slasher fiction, he used her real name and the name of her business, which was in his community. Was actually she was friends with his wife. Uses her name and the name of her business and says that he's going to stalk her so that he can mimic her every move, so he can transition into her identity, kill her by throwing her off of a Carnival cruise ship, okay? Kill her so that he can have sex with her husband, okay? So we published that story. And of course, now from the first story we published, it immediately went national. New York Times, Fox News, Daily Wire, everyone is talking about it now.
Yeah.
So by the time that 4th story hit, it gobbled up the news cycle from that Wednesday to that Friday. That was all anyone was talking about in national media.
Right.
What is going on in Alabama? And
Yeah.
we knew that was going to happen. That's why we were so cautious to publish it. But once we did, it was all in. And so now all there's national media, and this story breaks. The Lee County sheriffs are like, "We need to go do a wellness check on this guy." They go to his house. He's not at his house. And so they're leaving the neighborhood, and they see him in his car. So they turn their lights on to pull him over just to check on him. Well, the lights come on, and he takes off. He thinks he's going to prison for probably all the, who knows? I mean, this is conjecture here, but all the things he could have, we know what he did, and, but he doesn't know what we know that he did, and he probably did a lot more things that we didn't know.
I was going to say,
Right, so that mind.
There's more stacked in that we don't
Correct.
even know about.
Yeah, the wicked flee when no one pursueth, right? And so they turn their lights on, he takes off, and they get into a chase. Chase comes to an end. He pulls out a pistol, waving it around. "I'm not going to take this anymore." Puts the gun to his head, pulls the trigger, kills himself. Okay, so now that's not the intended goal. The goal was to see him, step down, get help. He chose to do that. Now the problem with him choosing to do that is that the New York Times and the Washington Post and AL.com and the Guardian and the Daily Beast and every other liberal rag in the nation blames Bryan Dawson, Craig Monger, and Jeff Poore for killing him.
Well, and I want to stress too, one of the things you told me last night, I knew that there had been liberal backlash.
Yeah.
I did not know your personal homes and families had been stalked and doxxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I missed that, or I'd have been praying about that specifically. I just knew you guys were getting just beat up in the press, but I didn't realize people wanted to beat you up for real.
Yeah, no. So it started with we had protesters show up at our building. I guess that's to be expected. Protesters showed up at our building. We had to hire security to be in our building. Alabama Unfiltered broadcasted from another studio for a couple days, and
For the record, y'all are headquartered in Scottsboro or someplace like
yes,
that.
that's
yeah,
right.
That's
So
right.
somewhere
yeah.
far, far
Yeah,
away
far,
from
far
Birmingham.
away.
There was protesters, but then what was even weirder is like when the Alabama Unfiltered team came back, they walked out the back door, and there was like weirdos sitting there filming them. And like when Allison like looked, one of them like kind of stared him down, and they freaked out and got in their car and drove off, and were like taking pictures. It was just a whole thing was just very, very bizarre, and there was all kinds of weird stuff going on, and so it was high tension moment for us with that. But if that wasn't enough, online pictures of my family with all my children with my home address underneath were being posted all over the place with threats of killing my kids. Same thing happened to Jeff. They reached out to Jeff's wife's law firm, making all these crazy accusations and everything about her because she's married to Jeff, and thankfully she works at a good law firm that's not dumb, so it didn't affect. But they came after her. They came after Jeff, threatened Jeff's kids, and then Craig, same thing, threatened him, threatened his kids. Craig got it the worst, and again, he got it the worst all the way around. He's the one that had to read all that stuff. He's the one that his parents got thrown under the bus. His parents had like a bankruptcy or something, and then they tried to basically say that the reason he did this was for money so that he could pay for his parents' but just insanity. Okay, but all kinds of stuff, all kinds of threats. And it was relentless, and it kicks back up every now and again. Like, months and months and months, years will go by, and then all of a sudden, Esquire, I think was the publication. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was Esquire, maybe a month or 6 weeks after the Bubba Copeland thing happened, they came in and did a big puff piece on what a great man Bubba Copeland was and how sad it was that the right-wing media killed him and all this stuff. Well, that the Esquire, puff piece ended up winning a Pulitzer. And when that Pulitzer announcement came out, there was a whole other, round of backlash against us or whatever. But getting back to it, so we all experienced, and it wasn't just me, Jeff, and Craig. I mean, like we had every single person on our team was getting people, because we used to have all of our staff on our website, like most companies. And then now every single one of those people was being attacked on social media and threatened and everything else. Yeah. And so the whole team really had to deal with it. But, Craig took it the worst, and then me and Jeff, and then the rest of the team. But it was, it was horrible, death threats, all that. But then, I don't know, it calmed down after about 3 or 4 weeks. And then about 3 or 4 weeks after it calmed down, I had a friend come in and say, "Man, Bryan, what would you do? What would you do if another story like that came across your desk?" And I was like, my knee jerk was like, and then I heard Bill Brown in my ear. He said, "You do what's right, even if they shoot bullets at you."
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you.
Yep.
In the aftermath, in the hindsight piece, because hindsight being 2020, but at the same time, I think part of wisdom is assessing where you've been and making sure you know where you're going.
Yep.
Would you do it again?
Nothing different.
And if another story of a similar nature or something that could be just as impactful came across your desk?
Same. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes y'all a news organization.
Yeah.
I can distinctly remember when Yellowhammer was what 1819 is now to us in Montgomery before y'all ever created. Yellowhammer is the one that broke the story about Governor Robert Bentley.
Yeah.
And it sucked the oxygen out of Montgomery.
Yeah.
But it was also real.
Yeah.
And I recognize that, that there were issues in his life, some of which may have been exaggerated in the press or whatever. I knew Robert Bentley personally, but there was enough there that we actually saw the governor step down.
Yeah.
And I don't think Yellowhammer ever regretted running a real story.
Yeah.
And I thought that was bold.
Yep.
As much as it was painful to Montgomery, as much as it was painful to have our state maligned in the national media, as much as it was painful to have to be there, I was the one who put together the articles of impeachment.
Yeah.
I was tasked with doing that as a senator. It was still a story that was a real story.
Yeah.
And I don't think it had near the personal backlash to Yellowhammer that y'all have experienced with the Bubba Copeland story, but I'm proud to hear you say before you leave, you're going to get one of those bulletproof influence classes from me that we have. You need it.